Hey there, welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write for the Chicago Reader, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living.
Yowza.
Hey-woo.
Hey-woo. So, as you may have noticed, because there are only two intros in this episode, Megan is not with us this week. She is out. She's doing things.
Just on vacation.
She's on vacation. Yeah. Not that Spoiler Piece isn't fun. I mean, what the hell? What kind of implication is that, Evan?
Well, you said she's not with us. It makes it sound like maybe she was not. It wasn't a good reason for her to be.
Right. It kind of makes it sound like she's not with us, like she's in a hospital or something. No, she's on vacation. So that being said, we are going to be talking about two movies today. We're going to be talking about The Holdovers and Eileen. But before we do that, wanted to mention that over on the Patreon, we talk about the 2009 Sam Rockwell starring Duncan Jones directed movie Moon, which is a lot deeper and more. I'll just go ahead and spoiler. Whoops. I really enjoyed it. I'd never seen it before, and it was a repeat watch for Evan. So we have a really good conversation about that, and of course, do go down the rabbit hole on a couple of things.
Yeah, we do, because there's what to talk about with that movie.
There really is. Anyway, if you're a $5 patron, go over and get that now. And if you're not a patron and you want to hear about Moon and all of the other episodes we've done over there, please consider joining. That would be sweet. So
much appreciated.
Yeah, much appreciated. And while we're here, I want to thank our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Heather, thank you so much for being our sponsor piece patron.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.
So I said we were talking about The Holdovers and Eileen. So let's talk about The Holdovers. Okay.
Let's indeed talk about it.
Yeah. I was making a dumb joke before we started that I want to see a movie called The Hold Unders. So this is Alexander Payne's latest movie about depressed white men. And here's the IMDb summary. A cranky history teacher at a remote prep school is forced to remain on campus over the holidays with a troubled student who has no place to go. Should mention that this is not written by Alexander Payne.
No.
Stars Paul Giamatti, Dominic Sessa, Divine Joy Randolph. Anybody else? I mean, no, those are like the three, main characters.
Yeah, I would say those are the three. I mean, in some places I've seen this kind of promoted / advertised as he's there on break with a bunch of kids that are not going home for break, but it really starts out that way with several of them, and then they all go and it just becomes him and this one other kid. They all go because some rich kid's dad flies in with this helicopter and he's like, hey, let's all go skiing, and they're like, oh, sweet, and everyone's parents give permission except for his.
Right. They can't get a hold of his parents because his mother has remarried and has not had time to go on a honeymoon with her second husband, which I gotta tell you, I mean, this kid is a prick. He's not a complete prick. He has reasons to be prickish. But being like ditched by your mother at the very last instant and being told you're going to have to stay at your prep school, with 5 other students, 2 of whom are not your age, even close.
Yeah.
2 of them are like 11 and 12 or something like that.
Yeah, they're young.
What a shitty thing to do to your kid. Just awful. And tells you a lot about his family life right then and there. That his mother is basically a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And so is his stepfather, for that matter.
Yep. We find out later in the film that his father has suffering from mental illness and is in an institution.
Yeah.
And that, caused the marriage to crumble, and
yeah,
it's really sad.
Yeah, it is. It's some kind of schizophrenia, clearly, but not really explained. They don't really need to explain it.
Yeah. And then I think the other important thing to mention is that Mary, who works in the cafeteria, played by Divine Joy Randolph, her son, who went to the the prep school had died in Vietnam, and she's mourning the loss of him. So she's around on campus, and she's making food for everybody, but kind of hanging around, and becomes a kind of buddy for Paul Giamatti's character. And then the three of them are hanging around each other toward the end of the movie.
Yeah. It is kind of amazing how Paul Giamatti can play characters who are just loathsome assholes.
Oh yeah.
and do it really well, but you're still like, God damn, he's good.
He is. He's really good.
Yeah. He's really good in this. I mean, I think this movie is fine. We were talking, I think, with Megan last week off mic about Alexander Payne movies. And we're like, yeah, we've all seen a bunch of Alexander Payne movies, but do you really remember them after you've seen them?
Yeah, it's true. There was actually a point that was brought up on a recent episode of our friends It's the Pictures, their podcast. Max Scoville and his co-host John Kilpatrick were talking about that, about how his movies are good, but they're really not memorable, often beyond the award season in which you're watching them. And it's kind of true. Like, I was thinking back to previous years, like watching The Descendants and Nebraska, and movies that I enjoyed, but I have no memory of them. This one felt a little more enjoyable to me, but I think because I'm coming from more a place of personal experience, like I knew
you went to prep school.
kind of, going to New England prep school, in high school, I feel like I was already kind of primed to enjoy this movie. It's like there were certain boxes that this was already checking for me. New England prep school, the fact that, it was shot in Massachusetts. They take a trip to Boston during the movie, although its Boston geography is very bizarre.
It's loose, yeah.
There's a scene where they're in the movie theater and they're at the Somerville movie theater, and it's portrayed as he's at the Orpheum Theater downtown. So it's like he leaves the theater and is downtown instead of being in Somerville.
That actually really threw me, because I was like, wait a minute, he was in the Somerville Theater. What? Because that's the Somerville lobby. What the fuck?
Yeah, it was very strange.
Yeah. And that's not really the kind of I mean, that's a local problem, but at least he didn't show up like in Coolidge Corner from the Somerville Theater or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a thing you're going to catch if you know the area, which we do. And I mean, the Somerville is probably, I'm going on a limb and say it's my favorite theater in the area. So I was excited to see it in the movie.
Yeah, that was cool. I always think of, when I think of movies playing poorly with geography, I always think of Men in Black, and just how it's New York is just, Times Square is just around the corner from the Guggenheim. And,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about The Holdovers. I think the one Alexander Payne movie that does stick in my head is Election, just because, I mean, to me, that movie is just outrageous.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
No.
It's something else.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear it's quite the movie.
Yeah, it's well, because you think how can there be a movie about like a high school student council election, and then you think, all right, well, it's going to be hijinks and whatever, and it's a very, very dark comedy. I mean, it's really funny, but it's really dark. Nobody dies. It's not that dark. But some of his other movies that I've seen, The Descendants, I thought was fine. As a whatever. I liked Nebraska, but you know what? And I mentioned this off mic. I hated Sideways so much it made me want to tear my hair out. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. By a major director
since like 2004 or 2005. I remember liking it at the time, but some of that might have had to do with how much I enjoyed Paul Giamatti's performance. I feel like that was kind of I don't know. I feel like it was definitely one of those performances that kind of put him on the map for me. Or I was like, oh, who is this guy? I enjoyed this performance. Where else have I seen him? Oh, I've seen him in some bit parts along the way in various different things. Okay, I'll look out for more stuff he's in.
Yeah. I just remember thinking that Thomas Hayden Church, who I like a lot, everyone was talking about like how good he was and this, and I'm like, I don't think he's good. I think he's just pretty average.
He played such a dick in that movie.
Yes, he really did. like the scene when he has the big breakdown about his wedding ring or his wedding band or the engagement ring. I can't remember. It's a ring that's important for his upcoming wedding. And he convinces Paul Giamatti to go get it. He's just awful in that scene, like truly bad acting. Anyway, I think
not the Holdovers. Got a little distracted.
Right, it's not the Holdovers. Well, I think that Alexander Payne is kind of known as one of those directors who gets good performances out of people that you might not like. I don't think Matthew Broderick's a bad actor, but I don't think Matthew Broderick the end of his experimentation was Glory, and ever since then he's been kind of playing the same character, except in Election. He is wildly different in Election. And well, you haven't seen it, so and Will Forte, like I remember I didn't know who was in Nebraska except for Bruce Dern, and I show up to the screening and Will Forte is like the second lead. I'm like, Will Forte, and then he's really good in this drama, so what did you think of the kid in the Holdovers?
I thought he was good. It's funny, I was just looking him up, Dominic Sessa, and I could have sworn I'd seen him in something, and I'm like, no, there's literally nothing else on his IMDb page.
Yeah, I think this is the first movie he's been in.
Like anything else. Like I thought I had seen him before because I thought he was good at playing the like angry kid who doesn't quite know where to direct all of his like anger and anxiety.
Yeah.
I just assumed I'd seen him before, but he was good in this. I thought all three central performances were really good.
Yeah.
I liked Paul Giamatti. He's great at playing a grump.
Yes.
But I mean, I think in this movie, he successfully plays someone who is a real fucking asshole, who you actually come to like see as someone who has been through some shit. And there's a reason why he's such an asshole and he's so jaded, but also why he puts up this kind of front about being this intellectual based on we hear the story later that he got kicked out of college.
Out of Harvard.
He got kicked out of Harvard, and the headmaster here took pity on him and gave him a job, and so he always felt like he had to like stay there basically for fear if he went somewhere else that he'd be found out.
Yeah, we should mention he was a student at this school, which is and the headmaster was always fond of him, and the current headmaster is not fond of him.
Yeah, well, he was a student of his.
Yeah,
he was a kid when Paul Giamatti had this guy as a kid. What did he call him? Penis cancer?
Yes, he does. At the end of the movie, he calls his former boss, because he gets fired unceremoniously, a penis cancer, and you always have been, or something like that. And that guy is just a massive douche.
For sure.
In the two scenes that he's in. So what happens is, they're stuck together. The other kids get taken away on the ski trip, and I it's.
I wish it didn't waste so long on that. I feel like it took too long for them to leave. I almost wish they just dispensed with that premise altogether and just got to the part where it was the two of them there.
Yeah, I can see why they did it though. They had to establish that he was a decent kid, because you got the other one who you already met, who's on his floor, who's just a real asshole. Yep. And then you have the two.
He looked like at least 2 or 3 kids I went to high school with.
Yeah. And then it turns out like the football player seems like he's kind of an okay guy. And then you got the 2 younger kids, and one of them like has a nightmare and like pees the bed, and in the morning, like he sees the kid crying, and he's like, "Oh, I have nightmares all the time. Did you pee your bed? Yes. Did you have an accident? Yes, I did." Like, all right, well, and he says something like, roll over into the dry spot, and I'll help you, get your sheets out of here in the morning, so that nobody finds out and makes fun of you.
I'm sure they'd smell the pee. That's the part that didn't really work for me. I was like, pretty sure they're going to smell that pee in the morning.
Especially because they had asparagus. So
yeah.
I think he even says asparagus there.
Yep.
So the kids go away, and then you have, another, this movie's like nearly 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I don't really think it needed to be that long.
No, definitely not. This could be tighter for sure. I think that's one of my critiques of it, is that it just could be much tighter.
Yeah. Like aside from the fact that Well, we should mention the kid keeps saying that he wants to go to Boston, and uh, he talks Paul Giamatti into going to Boston. They call it a field trip because they're not allowed to leave campus or the town unless there's a
Mm-hmm.
field trip. So he's like, "All right, we'll go to Boston for a field trip," and they go, and the geography is all wrong, and the kid sneaks out of a movie that they're in. I think it's Little Big Man, and he's like, "I got to go see my father." Uh, and Paul Giamatti's just like, "Come on, you can't run away," because he's tried to run away once
Yeah.
before.
Well, he was told his father was dead too, so he's like, "Of course, I'll take you to a cemetery."
Right. And it turns out that he's, institutionalized and I mean, it's really strange to feel like, all of the kid's behavior makes perfect sense because he feels like his mother abandoned his father and him. And he's also
Mm-hmm.
worried that the mental illness that his father has, he will eventually succumb to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Paul Giamatti makes a point to tell him, it's like, look, no matter what happens to you, you're not your father, which was one of the more impassioned scenes
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and empathetic scenes. But I just really, the two curmudgeons or the old curmudgeon and the curmudgeon in the making or the problem child or whatever you want to call him, I just kind of feel like I'm sort of done with that story.
Mm.
Like this is perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything really wrong with this movie, but it's perfect. It's fine. It's good, but is it special? Eh,
Mm.
I don't
I
know.
think it smartly gives Mary, that character, a sizable role and
Yeah,
lets that actor. It keeps it, I think, a more interesting movie when we learn about Mary and the recent loss of her son
yeah,
and her kind of grappling with that. And also, later when they go to Boston, she stays with her sister who's pregnant. And there's this really devastating scene where she's brought a little box of baby stuff that was her son's and she's giving it to her sister. And it really got me, that scene. Like, that was just devastating. She's like so happy for her sister,
mm,
but still just reeling from the loss of her son.
yeah. Um, who boy. Thank you for reminding me of that scene.
Yeah, it was a real gut punch of a scene, but I think her performance was so good throughout, Divine Joy Randolph. I think it
Yeah,
was a real standout in this movie, and it just added texture and it made the movie much more interesting, in my opinion. The fact that she's such a integral part of the movie. It's not just these two guys.
right.
She's also a part of it. Like, she could be more a part of it, I think, but she's there and she's a character and she's given sizable
Yeah.
space to occupy.
And the exchanges that she and Paul Giamatti have, especially when they're watching the Newlywed Game, which is something they keep coming back to, it's just really just like a good back and forth that the two of them
Mm-hmm.
have. And it's not that he does. It's not that he looks down on her, but he kind of, because she's the kitchen, like she's in charge of the kitchen. He at one point explains that he's going to write a short book, and I can't even remember what it's called. As a monograph.
Maybe.
And he says, "Oh, that's just a short, whatever." And she's like, "I know what a monograph is." He's like, "Oh," and over the course of the movie, he sort of comes to see her as like an intellectual equal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and certainly somebody with he does have a lot of sympathy for her personal situation with the loss of her son. But
Yeah. And for just being a person who is there, staying there alone too and doesn't have anybody. And also, working in the kitchen and having, people look down on her. Because
yeah,
there is a great part where one of the kids says something and he's like, "You just shut the fuck up right now. You don't know what the hell that woman's been through. Like, don't you sit there and judge her, you little shit."
yeah, it's the asshole kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, his Yeah, it's the kid who's selling weed in like the beginning, right? And accuses
Yep.
him of like stealing some of his cigarettes or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that, I mean, it's really worth watching for Paul Giamatti's performance. And he's really good at using just his face, and in this case, his character is, they call it walleye. I don't know what the actual called, but the condition, I don't know what the actual condition is called, but it's the kid says at some point, I don't know which of your eyes to look into, and the kid is really blunt with him about some of his physical problems,
like his odor or stench, whatever. Like, he's very blunt with him in a way that could otherwise be hurtful, but it seems like he kind of fires right back at the kid.
Yeah, well, he's got some condition that his body doesn't produce a kind of, I don't even remember what it is. There's just there's so much dialogue in this movie. It's hard to remember what everybody says. And there's also a scene where they go to a Christmas party that is being held by, one of the staffers. I think she's like the executive assistant. I don't remember.
To the headmaster.
To the headmaster. And she's very friendly and very outgoing, and it seems like she really, really likes Paul Giamatti. And it turns out that she's just nice and outgoing and friendly, because you learn at the party she invites him to that she does have a boyfriend or a husband. I don't know which it is, but I guess it's a boyfriend because they call her Miss whatever.
Yeah.
And just the kind of look on his face, it's not like he's disappointed. The look on his face is like, well, of course.
Well, yeah. Like, of course I knew that this woman could not possibly be interested in me.
Yeah. He's really good at doing that kind of stuff. So anyway, it sounds like you liked it. Well, I mean, I didn't dislike it. I don't even want to say you liked it more than I did. It's,
Yeah, I mean, it might have. I still feel like it was way too long, and I wish it got to the point faster with the kid and Paul Giamatti and putting them together. But I feel like those are really my critiques. I liked the story. I like the performances. I like that it's set in Massachusetts and filmed in Massachusetts, and they go to Boston. I mean, this is an easy way to curry favor with me.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, I've just lived, I'm not a local, but I've lived here so long now. It's like, oh, yeah. There's a funny line in the movie we're going to be talking about next that is I think it's the truest thing ever spoken in a movie about Massachusetts, but we'll get to that. So do you have any final thoughts on The Holdovers?
I mean, like I said, I was primed to like this because of, going to boarding school. Obviously, I didn't go to boarding school in the 1970s, but I feel like there's enough of it that's similar and to modern times. I think it captures the like kind of isolation you can feel even when you're not there on break alone.
Yeah,
like the isolation of the winter and everything. I feel like it perfectly captures the essence of it. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
The difficulty of driving in a New England winter before you had like heated rear, windows and
power steering.
Yeah.
And things.
Oh, good Lord. I just can't imagine that. Well,
Nope.
that happens in our next movie too. So let's move on to Eileen.
Yes.
Because it takes place in Massachusetts in the winter.
It does, funny enough.
Which I hadn't even thought about until you mentioned it.
Yeah, I hadn't either. I'd forgotten that these two movies were both like Massachusetts stories.
Yeah. Well, let me read you the IMDb summary here. I don't think I read the one for The Holdovers. Whoops. Here we go. A woman's friendship with a new coworker at the prison facility where she works takes a sinister turn. Now, people who write these things don't use the same word twice in a sentence. Worker and works. That's the same word.
Yeah, that bothers me.
God. Don't end a sentence with one word and then begin the next sentence with that same word. Okay.
Yeah, you could easily just say a new colleague at
Yes.
the prison she works at.
They're not really coworkers,
No, they're not peers.
No.
I mean, like,
I kept waiting. I had heard that there was a big dramatic turn in this movie, and I thought the turn was going to be, I did not. This is another one. 2 movies in a row, I didn't see the turn coming. Or rather, well, that's
really?
One is the Patreon. Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought the big reveal at the hour mark in this was going to be that Anne Hathaway's character, Rebecca, was not actually a doctor and she was, faking it or something.
Oh, I thought that was going to be the case too.
Yeah. But as it turns out,
it wasn't.
No. You have Thomasin McKenzie playing Eileen, the title character, who is a secretary at this juvenile boys prison.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And her colleagues seem to really dislike her, especially Siobhan.
She's kind of bored and listless and horny.
Yeah, she's really fucking horny. Like the movie opens with her like watching a couple at makeout, like a makeout place in town, and I can't remember like what if she has to go to work or whatever, but she stuffs snow down her pants to like
yellow snow of all snow.
Yeah,
like gross.
Yeah, so that she can calm her urges to do whatever it is she needs to do. And she's got this alcoholic father who is Shea Wiggum, who's a great actor, great character actor, but he plays one of the most loathsome assholes I've ever seen on screen.
Yeah, he's a real piece of shit.
This guy is just horrible in ways that, I mean, it just the verbal abuse that comes out of this guy, and at one point physical abuse. I forgot he like is throwing books at her at some point, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's just a miserable alcoholic, forced retired cop.
Yeah, who goes out in the street waving his gun around like drunkenly.
Yeah. Eventually, the police make him surrender his gun, and they give it to Eileen, which, as it turns out, is not the best idea.
No, definitely not.
Because you have about an hour of what is just, basically a character study when Rebecca shows up as the new prison. Is she a psychologist or a psychiatrist? She's not an MD, right? She's a PhD.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember if she's a psychiatrist or psychologist.
I'm going to go with psychologist. And she's, got the hoity-toity East Coast money accent.
Right. Yes.
And she dresses better than everybody. And, but she takes a liking to Eileen, and they go out for drinks and they dance together
quite sensually.
Yep. They make out a little bit at some point, I think. I can't remember.
She kisses her goodnight.
Oh, right. Rebecca kisses Eileen goodnight.
Yes.
In a linger on the lips, sort of more than friendly way.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, would you say that Eileen's infatuated with her, or she's kind of consumed.
She definitely
by
is.
Her.
She's definitely consumed by her, and he I want to be you at the same time,
right?
Kind of situation,
right? So there's a kid in the prison who has been accused of, and maybe convicted of, I'm not really sure, but stabbing his father to death in the throat.
Mm-hmm.
And his
father was a cop too.
Right. I know some guys like, come on, he's a cop killer. And he's like, no, Eileen's like, no, he killed his father. He just happened to be a cop. And I was like, it's actually an important distinction there, Eileen.
It is. Yeah.
Marin Ireland plays the kid's mother, and she comes in and she's like, yeah, he's a piece of shit. He's always been one. And so on Christmas Eve, Rebecca calls up Eileen and says, hey, why don't you come over to my house and, just we'll spend Christmas Eve together and we'll have some drinks and it'll be fun. And at this point, Eileen is, she's been without Rebecca for a little bit because Rebecca took off like a week before the holidays or something. And she's like, yes, I'll be over. And she, wears one of her mother's dresses because her mother, as Eileen says at one point, was kind of a fashion. Does she call her a clothes horse? I can't remember. Doesn't matter. I don't remember. She liked nice clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Wears a fur coat, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, this is the line, the truest line about Massachusetts I've ever heard in a movie. At some point, Rebecca and Eileen are talking about the people in town, and Rebecca says something like, God, just, the people are so standoffish and kind of angry. And Eileen says, well, it's Massachusetts. Everybody's angry.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. I just heard that and I was like, oh my God, it's in a movie. Somebody said it. So, because it's true, especially people from the eastern part of Massachusetts. Anyway.
I'm just picturing Mark Ruffalo when he was the Hulk. That's my secret. I'm always angry.
Yeah. So anyway, Eileen goes over to Rebecca's house, and the first thing I noticed was like, this place is a dump. This is not the kind of place that Rebecca
Dishes
would
in
live
the
in.
sink.
She can't handle the cat. Like the cat is freaking out. And I was like, boy, that cat really hates her. And I'm not thinking anything. Like, I'm just like, when are we going to find out that she's like not a doctor?
Right. Or she's going to rope her into some like really unsavory, like, she's hooking her in and then she's going to rope her into some real unsavory thing because like all the plot summaries I read, was like, it takes a sinister turn. She asked her to participate in some, gruesome crime or something like that.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it is, so what happens is Rebecca has gone over to Marin Island's house to confront her about what the son who killed his father has said, my father was basically raping me and my mother knew about it.
My mother knew. Yep. And
didn't do anything about it. And I killed him out of, anger or whatever. And Rebecca went over to get the mom to talk about that on the record so that she could, bring evidence to, I don't know, his appeal. If there was going to be one, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And
unclear what she wanted to do.
And Rebecca claims that Marin Island attacked her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's even got the scratches to prove it, which attack or defend, I'm not sure.
Right. And they fell down the stairs into the basement.
They fell down the stairs into the basement.
In the struggle.
Yes. And Marin Island was incapacitated in some way. So Anne Hathaway, Rebecca, tied her up to one of those load-bearing beams that's in your basement if it's unfinished.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or finished.
That's true.
I've got a beam over here. It's got like a cover over it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. The beams in I have a finished basement, and the two beams in mine are like, made to look hidden. So anyway, at first Eileen's like, what the fuck? I'm getting out of here.
She's blindsided by it.
Well, like, just like the audience, I would assume.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a real shock to me as well because it's said so matter-of-factly. Like, she's there. Eileen knows something's weird. She's poured wine into like teacups. She gave her some like gross cheese with no knife and some pickles, and Eileen takes a bite of one of the pickles and is grossed out by it and puts it back in the jar.
Yeah.
And then I think she goes to the bathroom or something like that, comes back, and yeah, Anne Hathaway's character just so matter-of-factly just tells her, by the way, I've got her in the basement tied up. Like, want to go down there with me and, get a confession out of her? Because I need like a witness, because otherwise this is going to look real bad for me. Yeah. It's going to look really bad for me, and let's go get that confession, and then we'll go to the police and like wrap all this up.
Yeah. So as it turns out, though, Eileen has brought her father's gun with her, and she's been having these fantasies about killing herself or her father, with the gun.
Which startled the shit out of me in those couple of times it happened, because she gets the gun and immediately blows her brains out. And I'm like, I know that's not real, but it happens so suddenly that it just shocked me.
Right. That one, it really surprised me. The one where she shot her father in the back head, that didn't really surprise me because I'm like, well, she wants to,
Well, yeah.
So
she said earlier in the movie, well, everyone thinks about killing their father. And Anne Hathaway's like, not really.
Yeah. That is true. There are some really funny moments in this. But the whole confession scene is not one of them. They eventually get Marin Island to admit to what was going on and claim that, she was doing it because when you get married, you have a contract with your husband to obey him, et cetera, et cetera. And she says that after their son was born, they they weren't, physical with each other anymore. But then once the abuse started, he showed more like physical attention to his wife too, which she really liked. And it's just like, this is just getting grosser and grosser.
Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable scene.
And so Eileen has been pointing the gun at her the whole time and just fires and shoots her in the shoulder.
Yeah, which I don't think would have been a fatal shot, but then they're so busy like holding her because she starts screaming and just jamming pills down her throat.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, yeah, then she probably is dead, if not dying once she's kind of, they pour all the pills in her mouth.
Yeah. So they agree that now this is the point where Rebecca gets freaked out and can't believe that Eileen has shot her. But Eileen's like, look, we'll take her to my house. We'll pretend, we'll make it look like my father shot her because he's such a piece of shit and she knows him. So, why wouldn't she be over here? And, and then we'll go to New York because I love you. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Came on a little strong.
Tipped your hand there, Eileen. So, they get the body back to Eileen's house, and Rebecca's like, all right, I have to go back at Polk. That's their name. I have to go back to the Polk house and get rid of all the evidence. I'll be back here soon. And I was just like, oh, Eileen, she's not coming back.
She doesn't even get that far, actually. They're leaving the Polk house, and she says, I have to go back in and, destroy a bunch of evidence.
Oh.
And she's like, okay, I'll go to my dad's house and I'll wait for you there. And after she left, I was like, she didn't tell her where her dad lives.
Right.
So first of all, that's a problem because she doesn't know what address she's supposed to be going to. But I was like, second of all, she's never coming.
No.
Eileen's got the body, like she's all the evidence. It all looks so bad for her. There's no reason she even needs to go there. So Eileen's just sitting there with the dead body in her car, smoking cigarettes at the window, waiting for Rebecca to come, and she just never does.
Yeah, and when she realizes that she's not coming, she takes the car, drives out to the middle of nowhere, and rigs it up so that Marin Allen's being asphyxiated, basically. But I think maybe she's just passed out, because of the pills. I don't know exactly, but it's like, I mean, I know it's 1970 or whatever it is, but they're going to figure out that it's your dad's car, your dad's gun. I mean, maybe they'll assume your dad did it. I don't know. I think that's what Eileen is thinking.
Yeah.
But then Eileen goes and hitchhikes with blood on her face, I might add. Gets picked up by a truck, and she's going wherever she's going. And the movie ends with just like her kind of smiling.
Yep.
It's different. It's interesting. I mean, I will say it's very well acted. Thomasin McKenzie gets the Boston accent or the, local patter in a way that a lot of people struggle with. I feel like, did you agree with that, or
she was? I mean, like everybody, there was a little bit of inconsistency, but I think it worked for her because she kind of has like a low, quiet, kind of like mousy voice to the character,
right?
So it's kind of easier to stay within the accent.
And I should add that Siobhan Fallon adds another horrible asshole to her long list of playing horrible assholes.
Well, you mentioned Men in Black earlier, and I always think of her from Men in Black when she's talking about Vincent D'Onofrio, the alien. She's like, but it wasn't Edgar. It was like an Edgar suit. He comes and asks for sugar water.
Oh, and Edgar, yes. I forgot that's his name.
Sugar water.
So what did you think, like, overall?
I really wanted to like this movie. It kind of like established itself as this kind of moody, wintry Massachusetts movie that I thought I was really going to like. And I swore I was not going to make a joke like this, but I was thinking as I was watching, come on, Eileen. Like, seriously, this movie took forever to get to the point. And it did very abruptly, which it kind of caught my attention again. Like you, I was thinking that the deception was going to be that Anne Hathaway's character was not really a doctor. So when she just matter-of-factly says, oh, I got this woman tied up in the basement, slammed on the brakes, and I was like, okay, you got my attention again. And then I felt like the movie just so hastily wrapped up that I found myself frustrated by the end.
Yeah, the pacing is very I mean the pacing seems so deliberate for the first hour that they have made these choices to show Eileen's, crummy life in as much detail as they can. Maybe so that when the twist comes, you're on Eileen's side. I don't know. Rebecca says to her after she shoots her, like, why did you shoot her? And Eileen says something like, well, she was making me angry. Her story was making me angry. And it's like, I think Eileen might be a whole hell of a lot more angry than we thought she was.
Well, yeah. Yeah, not just sexually frustrated.
Yeah.
Just like...
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't dislike this. I didn't even really necessarily think it was slow. I was just kind of like, yeah, all right. It's interesting that, everyone talks about, I mean, a lot of people have talked about Thomasin McKenzie's performance and that it's very good, et cetera. But I keep, hearing Anne Hathaway, and it's like, she's barely in it. I mean, this movie is what, 90 minutes long, and she's maybe in 20 minutes of it.
Yeah, she doesn't show up in a whole lot of it. I did think she was very good, though. I think I liked her performance more so, but I think she's really good at playing this kind of like aloof, kind of like magnetic personality that attracts, Eileen into her orbit. Yeah. I think she plays that very well.
It reminded me a lot of her character from Brokeback Mountain. I don't know if that's accurate, but it reminded me of that.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, well, I mean, there's another one for your list. Okay, I finally saw Moon. You can see Brokeback.
Okay.
Anyway, I feel like I'm a little listless this week. Sorry, everybody. I'm definitely a little more tired than I usually am. Small children, etc. So anyway, yeah, I just, I thought it was kind of an interesting character study, and I didn't love the twist, but when the twist, because, like I was saying, you've got an hour of character development, seeing what Eileen is going through, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And then there's this weird twist, and then it does wrap up very quickly, but I kind of feel like the point was just to get Eileen to a place where you would understand why she would do this. Because she's got the alcoholic father, and she hates everything about her life. She's I don't even know how to describe it. Like, she's on the edge already, and you got to wrap it up quickly because you only have so much time to dispose of the body before the sun comes up.
True.
I don't know. I did appreciate the whole sort of thrown together way of disposing the body, because I did wind it back. I'm like, did she like rig up the car to have the exhaust blow into the... Yes, she did. And it's 1970. Like, who knows if they'll catch her? I mean,
yeah, never know.
Now obviously Eileen's not a serial killer, although who knows what happens to her after the credits roll. But
right, yeah, this could be the beginning of Eileen, natural born killer, or something. Who
exactly. Eileen Zodiac, Eileen Hillside Strangler. How many other famous serial killers can we go through?
Eileen, Boston Strangler.
Yeah, Eileen, son of Sam, or daughter of Sam. I don't know. Yeah, the way she's just sort of has that, I kind of appreciated just the sort of smile on her face right before the movie ends, because I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've earned that, but at the same time, you haven't not earned it. So, I just think that, like you mentioned, this is my word, but the disjointedness of the two pieces. You've got 2/3 of one movie and then 1/3 of another movie together, and they could work. I just think it's not quite I don't know. Not quite there. That being
No,
said,
it
I
didn't.
mean, it's not bad, you know.
It's okay. I wished I liked it a lot more than I did.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to it.
I
But
thought it would be a lot more psychological and focus a lot more on the Anne Hathaway character, kind of like entrapping Eileen in her orbit and her like nefarious things that
yeah,
she had
because
planned.
that's how all of the press stuff has been written and all the marketing stuff. So,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I make it a habit to not read those things, and this is kind of one of the many reasons. I don't really want to know. Like, if I had gone into this blind and, seen Eileen shoot Marin Island in the shoulder, then maybe I would have felt differently about it. But, I'm thinking it's going to be one thing like, I mean, I don't even know what I thought, that maybe Anne Hathaway's character is like killing kids from the prison and then stuffing them under her garage. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was just going to be, oh, I came over here to get this confession from this woman and I tied her up. So,
Totally. Yeah. Although, I mean, we're kind of at the point in the year. I mean, listeners, it is award season. We're kind of trying to figure out what to watch to, firm up our BAFTA ballots. And so I feel like I'm, in selection mode. And I feel like one of the reasons I want to watch this is because it sounded really interesting. Like it sounded like it'd be a really interesting thriller, something psychological. I feel like I also just heard a lot of buzz about this movie the course of the year.
right.
Um, so that was like something that spurred me to watch it, and then feeling like, ugh, I mean, I hear what you're saying because I think it's bad as a critic to go into a movie with
Yeah.
expectations to have those dashed. I think the movie should try. You should try to go in with as little as possible so that you're kind of just watching the movie for what it is. But yeah, I think even if I try to divorce that part, the expectations or the marketing of what the movie was going to be, I don't think it held up as
No.
what it turned out to be, even if I just completely, excise that from my mind.
Yeah, I wonder what this is based on a novel. Writers from Boston. I wonder,
Mm,
how much more depth it goes into, and if the twist comes up, if it feels like it comes up just as suddenly there in the source material. I also make it a habit to not read source material because I don't want to know how different it is from the movie, because I don't give a shit how different it is. Um, I still remember this. I had actually read The Firm when I was like 18 years old or something like that, and then the movie came
mm,
out, and the ending is so wildly different from the book. And people were just like furious. And even back then I was like, well, who cares? It's a movie. Like,
yeah.
the ending in the book would be like really hard to pull off and kind of anticlimactic. So who knows what the Eileen novel is like? I'm assuming it's got it the same, Eileen's your main character. There's Rebecca. Eileen shoots somebody and she gets out of town. But whatever else, who knows?
Hmm.
That being said, I don't think I'm going to read the novel now that I've seen the movie.
Yeah. I find that sometimes I retroactively read the book that something's based on if I find the movie interesting enough. And then occasionally, but I not that often because I'm not a huge reader, I will end up seeing a movie that I happen to have read the book that it's based on.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen for that often.
I feel like a lot of times if a movie's based on like a nonfiction story, I'll read that book afterward if I really liked the movie.
Hmm.
But yeah, not fiction so much. Anyway, I want to apologize again, listeners, for being kind of like "Duh," this episode.
I don't think you are. I think you're fine. I
Okay,
think
thanks.
this movie is encouraging some listlessness.
Yeah, I think that might be true. I feel like Megan really liked this. Did she mention that, or am I making that up?
Oh, she might have liked this movie.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was this movie or there's another one that I'm thinking of. But anyway, I'll be interested to hear, her take us to
Yeah,
task
she did
next
like
week.
this movie.
Okay. Sorry, Megan. Do you have any final closing thoughts on Eileen?
Nah, I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think they should have called it "Come On, Eileen," because then the twist would have been so outrageous because you're expecting Dexy's Midnight Runners to show up, but they don't.
But alas.
Yeah. So anyway, that is this week's Spoiler Piece Theater. I think that I could give a Your Mileage May Vary recommendation to the Holdovers. How about you?
Yeah, I feel similarly. I feel fairly good recommending it, but it might not be for everybody.
Yeah. And Eileen, I mean, this is another Your Mileage May Vary. I mean, there's a lot of good things in this. I think that Thomas and Mackenzie's performance is good. I liked Anne Hathaway. I liked how it did kind of remind me of the 70s, although it reminded me more of the 50s. And when I say 50s, I mean the look of 50s movies. I didn't live in the 50s. So yeah, I don't know. It just depends on how much you want to watch, Shea Wickham abuse Thomas and Mackenzie, and then Thomas and Mackenzie abuse the Polk woman. I don't know. It's fucking
Yeah. I think I lean more toward no on that one, just because I feel like for me, the twist and everything that happened wasn't necessarily worth it for sticking around through everything else.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Your mileage may vary, like I said. So that's the Holdovers is already out. Eileen comes out now, and those are now.
Watch it now.
You should watch it now. Get to the chopper. That's Spoiler Piece Theater. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We just told you where you can see the movies. I want to thank our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for doing the editing every week. You're so good.
Yeah, thanks, Otto. You're the best.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. If you want to visit our website, that's spoilerpiece.com. On social media, we're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook, and we're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Threads, I think. I should know because I opened that account, but you can email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com. I would actually really like to know what you thought of Eileen. So you can email us or you can give us a call.
Yep. At 862-21-PEACE.
And just if you've seen Eileen or want to see Eileen, or you think Come On Eileen was a great number 2 hit, and why didn't the Dexys Midnight Runners guys have more hits? I don't know if it was number 2 or not. Yeah, I'm going to stop beating that joke to death. If you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, or you can rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. As we mentioned at the top of the episode, this week we talk about the 2009 movie Moon, directed by Duncan Jones, starring Sam Rockwell. It's a really fun conversation about a surprisingly, to me, deep movie. And that is that. My name's Dave Riedel. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I tripped over those words. Apologies. And I'm Dave Sees Movies on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, Threads, blah, blah.
My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on social media as Real Recon. That's as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel. And I'm on, I think, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Skies, Threads, and I think that's fucking it.
Yeah, who knows where all the social media stuff is going to end up. Not on Twitter. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.